Welcome, everybody, to Pull Up a Chair. Today's guest is a longtime friend of mine, somebody you will see out and about in the community at ribbon cuttings and charitable events, and he's just a hyper-involved person, not hyper/involved. He's hyper-involved in the community, working with different organizations, working with different businesses. He's been a tremendous asset to me as helping me and guiding my business forward and referring people. Like, you'll hear that word a lot when you hear from this guy. You hear referral. He's very big on referrals. Today's guest is Tom Grimes. He's the owner of Avatar Web Services, website design, and he is going to tell us a little bit about why it's important for him to be involved in his communities, not just where he lives, but adjacent communities and helping people with all aspects of their lives, really. He is going to be the president-elect of the Rotary Club of Marietta. He's an ambassador with the Marietta-Wildomar Chamber of Commerce, and he is very involved in BNI Group, which is a networking group with chapters all over Southwest Riverside County. He's held nearly every position you can hold with that group. So he knows a lot about a lot of different things, and especially about helping his fellow man. So Tom, pull up a chair. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jeff, for the long and warm introduction. And just to give a little bit of background, my roots in giving probably go all the way back to the fact that, my mother was born in India. No, she's not native Indian or Indian from India. Her parents, my grandparents, were a British and an American minister that met in the 30s in India. This is when it was still a British province of the empire. And needless to say, they got married, they had 2 children. And then because of all the unrest when they were going through the civil changes, when India became its own nation, which is now the largest democracy in the world. Everybody likes to think the U.S. is, but no, it's India. There's well over 1 billion people in India. So they came to the States in about 1948-ish and lived a very simple and giving life as, ministers. And, it's from those roots that I probably draw a sense of giving back to the community. Because, naturally, when you start a business, you're thinking, how do I make it? How do I make money? How do I feed my family, and own a house eventually and things of that nature? Well, this guy, he's probably a little bit more insane than most people, because I left almost a 6-figure job and decided, with my wife's support and standing behind me to say, yeah, go ahead and cash out that 401k and start your own business. Right when we bought our house, like a month after.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about diving into the deep end with a storm and rocks and sharks out there. I really took a risk, and thank God she supported me the whole way, because, it was tough at first. Those first 6 months were, literally, printing business cards and flyers, going door to door. I'd pick a plaza or 2 a day and introduce myself to the local business owners, because I knew I could build websites. I knew they were the best thing and the most affordable thing that you could have. But boy, was I in for a shock, that now, that doesn't quite get it. That might sound good, but how are you going to get past those castle guards? And by that, I mean the people at the front desk that don't always let you see the owner, the doctor, the lawyer. And I started thinking long and hard about it, and, a little bit of Google searching, because, I worked pretty much every area of IT before I settled on webs stuff that was going to be my career. Because I literally, worked every avenue, building PCs, databases, networking, and that includes, stripping and wiring systems, for cabling for the old-fashioned networks before we all went wireless, and learning how to do servers so that you could have your internet in the cloud. Without the servers, you wouldn't have that. So I settled on that, and I decided, what? Chamber of Commerce. Let's go check out this Marietta Chamber of Commerce. Well, as it so happens, when I walked into the office there on Madison in those days, the gentleman who sat down with me, that was their business development manager and signing up new members, had just started a week or so before. And he was under contract, month-to-month contract. And he signed me up, told me all about the chamber, did a really good job. He used to be a used car salesman, ironically. So I thought that was always fun to tease him about, tongue in cheek. But he did an excellent job of representing the chamber and, get me to come aboard. And that really, by going to the chamber events and meeting people, meeting those business owners now instead of their castle guards in most cases, I was able to break down some doors and actually propel the business forward and get some actual work.
Well,
Because before
let me hold you right there. Let's go back and give you a little bit of plug on what you do. I mean,
I'm getting there.
you
Yeah.
know, sorry, I wanted to make sure we didn't skip past the great work that you do.
So the work I do, initially when I joined the chamber, I formed just a sole proprietorship, and it was called Avatar Website Design. Names in the title, what I do. I design websites. But then I started adding more and more services as time went along because I had finished my bachelor's at my last job to prove, hey, this guy actually knows how to do web design because, the proof's in the pudding, because anybody can build a website, but who knows all the coding behind the page? That's what I went to school for and had learned over the years. So I did that. And then I went back to get a master's, and I narrowed it down to I wanted to do it in cybersecurity because I've always thought that was the area that everybody should focus on, primarily because if I see your website and that's your face to the public, what better way to break into your business than hack your website? And that's what hackers do. They find all your information on the web, on your social media channels, then they go after you. They look for the low-hanging fruit, and that's the easy prey. So you get into the website, then you can get into the network or do a phishing attempt by finding out who's on the contact page for emails. Some people are out there, and they'll even list all the emails on our team page. So now I've got all your emails. Now I can come after you with phishing attempts. And that's still the number one way that people get hacked is through a phishing attempt with a link in it or something that gets somebody clicking where they shouldn't be clicking. So, and that's where my master's came in. I studied for, that and got it going, and then finished that up about 13 months. I did it really quickly because I just never stopped. I just kept going and taking class after class all the way through the summer so that I could get that done. And I happened to mention, as I added that to my services, I created Avatar Cyber Services. I happened to mention that at an event that was called Hype in those days, Help Young Professionals Exceed, as through the chamber. I attended that, and mostly it was folks that were in the college area, admissions and other professors and administrators. When I mentioned that, oh, okay, they thought that was pretty cool. On a Thursday night, I got a phone call from Mount San Jacinto College asking me, hey, do you mind, have you ever heard of the Cyber Cup Challenge? And I said, yeah, I've heard of the Mayor Cyber Cup Challenge. And they asked me if I would mind being one of the speakers. And I said, okay, how long's the speech? Oh, probably about 10, 15 minutes. Okay, I can do that. When is this event? Saturday morning at 8 a.m. I'm like, oh, wow, it's Thursday night. I have a day to prepare. Most people say, no, that's not enough time, but I'm crazy. I went ahead and went for it. I got it prepared. And then I show up at the event bright and early, and they ask me, okay, do you mind speaking a little longer? You're going to have to be the keynote speaker because that person bowed out. So now I'm having to stretch for 20, 25 minutes and, also a question and answer period. Well, I guess I did well enough with my PowerPoint, and it wasn't horrible. It wasn't death by PowerPoint like a lot of folks do. And I tell a real life story of what it's like, to run a business and what to expect if you're trying to get a job in cybersecurity, that you may have to start on a help desk. You may have to start at level 1 or 2. Not everybody gets to start level 3 or, CEO of the company. You got to start somewhere. So take those lower paying jobs. You'll work your way up if you have the skills and you prove your knowledge. And that went over really well with one person in particular in the audience who happened to be the director of National University's cybersecurity program, and his daughter had participated in the event. So he approached me afterwards, asked if I would you with National University and become a professor, which I've now taught there for 7 years. That's one of the other gigs I have is I teach cybersecurity to a lot of military contractors and military personnel down at San Diego area. So that's kept my, finger and thumbs on the pulse of what's going on out there with cybersecurity because I have to keep these guys up to date. So that was one of the first two, that I started. Then I decided, okay, well, I want to also revisit SEO, search engine optimization and digital marketing. So I spun up Avatar Web Services to keep that kind of separate where we could offer that, selling domain names because everybody starts their website with a domain name. So why not buy it from me, right? So I don't make really any money on that, but that way you get your foot in the door, you get your abc.com and you're all happy. And then you're probably going to want to hire me to build the website because you bought the domain from me. So that's my reasoning on that one. So I've, now gone in and learned more and more about SEO, including the latest, which is, they call it AEO, which is the answer engine optimization for AI, because AI is really taking over the world at the moment. So I delved deep into that, did a lot of research to see which ones I wanted to use for SEO AEO, and also to help assist make my website builds faster, but still keep them clean and looking like a human built it instead of, seeing 3 fingers on a hand or maybe arms coming off of a chair, which I've literally seen the images in AI do. So you need a human in between that AI and the real presentation to the world. So that was another thing that I've added to it. And then I got tired of looking around for graphic designers after the lady who had at the chamber. I ran into some folks at the chamber, graphic designer who had invited me to check out a networking group that she's in. Her and her husband both, he did the IT for the group. So I came and checked it out and, listened to their spiel, watched the meeting, and I thought, this is a no-brainer. This is all about referral marketing. I'm in. I joined BNI almost 9 years ago. So ever since then, I've gotten referrals from the BNI group, from people that are members of other chapters. And also the way BNI really works well is that you get not just referrals from the people that you meet there or do business with, you get second, third, fourth on up the stream as people that they know. So it's very exponential, and I highly recommend that program to anybody. Obviously, I'm going to prefer that you go to BNI and join, but there's similar organizations out there. Just I feel that BNI does it the best. Hence why eventually a couple of years ago, the local director invited me to join a regional team as what they call a director consultant. So I help launch new chapters. I help by visiting chapters and answer questions that maybe they don't have the answers to at their leadership team, or give them some direction on areas for improvement, in a gentle coaching fashion instead of criticism, because that's not my job. I'm not there to criticize them. I'm saying, could you try this? Maybe that might help you conduct this section of the meeting smoother. So it's all about your approach. So yeah, I do quite a few things when I start thinking about it. I never really thought that, about all the stuff I do, but it all like kind of coalesces around each other where, oh yeah, I joined the chamber, I joined BNI, and, it's all about getting the referrals because think about when you move into a new neighborhood, and this is what I always preach at BNI. You move into that new neighborhood, when you're younger and you're renting all the time, or maybe you do buy a house every couple of years. Like, some people change cars every couple of years. Some people do the same thing with their houses. I
Yeah.
don't recommend that because it's not a good way to make money, but sometimes you have to do it for your job. So what's the first thing you do after you move into the house? You start looking for those resources, right? You need the guy that can work on
Right.
your HVAC, the plumber when you have a party and somebody does something bad in your bathroom and backs it all up. You need the gardener, your landscapers, people to do home improvement projects, your general contractor. Oh my God, the water drip system on the AC in the attic overflowed because it backed up. And now I've got a flood from my upstairs coming to my downstairs. True story. I've seen that happen more than once. So you need a restoration contractor to get the water out of your house and potentially the mold. So that's the people you look for, right? So you want that community of people that you want in your back pocket, or in the old days in our little black book, that you can call and say, hey, Joe or Dave or Wilma, I have this problem. When can you get me out here? That is what BNI does for you. Now you have those referrals in your app on your phone and at your fingertips. And if they can't do it, they know someone that they can refer you to. And it's worked out really well for helping me in my neighborhood. I've had some of the people here asked me for a solar provider when we were still trying to add extra solar panels to our brand new homes 10 years ago. And I
Mm-hmm.
got kinds of, people that were being referred to the solar guy I knew. Plumbers, electricians, same thing. Hey, I want to add some Govee lights. Hey, I know an electrician or I know a handyman. Because if you buy the lights, the handyman can put them up as well. So it's learning who has those skills in each of the BNI chapters, primarily my own, but I will refer out to other chapters when I don't have someone. And that's really helped like kind of establish me as a kind of a go-to guy. And it's a nice warm feeling being able to help your community that way, because
Yeah.
not only are you, supplying business to somebody else, but you're also helping your fellow man, your neighbor, your friend, somebody you just ran into at the mall, you name it, I probably know someone that can help you. If someone going
Yeah.
through a divorce, hey, I know some of the best divorce attorneys in town. They helped me fix my mess that my ex-wife never signed and sent out the final packet because she was the person that was the one that started it.
Mm-hmm.
So 25 years later, I found out when I was having my pension reviewed, I couldn't find any of the final paperwork. Found out she never did it. So I had to hire a local divorce attorney to smooth that path through and get it done. And they were some of the best attorneys in town for that. It didn't take them long at all. And now I've got that small pension at least. and didn't have to get into a battle with my ex-wife. And also, I was not a bigamist, I found out. So, so that was the scary
Well,
part. I'm remarried. Oh my God, how did that happen?
Well, I
So,
mean, you all of these industries that you're in, right?
mhm,
That there's I don't know how you would say this, but everything you is in service. And
mhm.
obviously that comes from your parents and that comes from your background and wanting to help people. And that's great. For BNI, and I've been in the groups before, and a lot of people, there's a misconception or maybe a bias toward them thinking, well, these are just places people go and socialize. And what I learned from these groups from being involved in these groups is that I learn being in these groups. And as adults, as our careers, ebb and flow, some people are lucky to be in the same career and the same path for 40, 50 years, I guess. And others have got to adjust and adapt. And just as you've had to adapt, from the early days of web design to dealing with AI now, and adjusting to that, we all have to do that. And so these groups like Rotary and like BNI are groups where you are growing as an adult and learning more than anything else. You're not just sitting around, shooting the crap on a Tuesday morning and eating some eggs. There's structure to it, and there's things you can learn. And not to make this a big advertisement for BNI, but
Well, that's why I said any of
that
those groups.
right. So it's part of like giving back to each other and people, and what you might know, I don't know. And so being able to learn little things here and there is where the value is. And that really transcends just business. It's each other, your neighbors, like the people you meet on the street. It should transcend.
Yeah, a lot of times this will turn into lifelong friendships. Like I said, that graphic designer and her husband, sadly, she passed away a few years back. So I lost my graphic designer, hence why I then had to hire some graphic designers. And I started the latest division of Avatar, which was Avatar Graphic Design. So now I have a couple of graphic designers as well. But they help you and make suggestions about how to do business, how to comport yourself in public. Because maybe you're a bull in a china shop, like some of the people I've run into that come into town and just go crazy and, like, mine's the best way, mine's the only way to do things. No, I went out when I first started my business and I right away started trying to meet other web designers because not only to maybe learn from them or to assist them and mentor them if they were really green, because that's what I try to do now with the, people coming out of college. But also, what if I'm not the best fit? What if you don't like the way my websites look and you want a different style? I can send you to another web designer or
Right.
another
Right.
SEO person. So I've made friends with a lot of those guys in our area, in our community, and I will refer to them, and they in turn have referred me. One of my favorite stories for that is I had a gentleman that we were both ambassadors in the chamber, and he was primarily a graphic designer and an author, and things like that when I first met him. And then one time at a mega mixer, I saw that he had put web design on his tablecloth, on his events table. I'm like, huh. So I took his books and I moved it over and covered up web design as a joke. And he saw me and, we started joking about it and everything. And we've gotten to be friends over the years. We did a podcast about movies and TV shows for 5 years. And we've cut it back to where we just do it like 3 times a year now because it was getting to be a little bit much for both of us in our schedules. But he
Right.
moved to Arizona and I helped him, move things around and help him do a little bit of yard sale stuff before his family moved out. But I received a call one day about a year or two ago from what was looking like it was going to be a client. And this guy and I were hitting it off. We're nailing all the sweet spots, talking about web design, what he wants on his website. And then his final question came up. You're local, aren't you? And I said, well, local to where? Where are you at? And he said he was in Arizona. I'm like, oh, no, I'm in Southern California. And so, oh, I'm sorry I wasted your time. And by then we talked about half an hour and get along great. And I said, well, hang on, before you hang up, how close are you to this area of Arizona? And he said, oh, that's right up the road from me. I live blah, 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 right down the road from it. I said, okay, let me introduce you to this guy. I'll send him your information if that's okay. He'll contact you. And I think you're going to love the websites that he's going to build for you. And he also does the following stuff too, because he's a graphic designer as well. So that worked out well. He got the gig, and then he rewarded me by sending me any of his SEO clients because he hates doing SEO. He'd rather send that out. So, once again, karma pays off. You help someone, they help you. BNI's motto is givers gain. and I gave in that instance, and I did definitely gain. I wasn't anticipating the gain, but because I gave him some work, he was going to reward me. And so that then leads up to, after all these years, because I've been in business almost 10 years, and 3 years ago, I incorporated my business. So now we're Professor Avatar Incorporated with all those other DBAs under it. And we did all right. I have a board. My wife's on the board. Should I get hit by a train tomorrow, she takes over. And that way we have business continuity, because that's what everybody asks you when they see you have gray hair and little of it. They say, "What's your business continuity plan, sir? I'm not going to sign up with you if, I can't get a hold of someone should something happen to you." And they're just being brutally honest, a little too brutal sometimes, it's like,
Yeah.
no, my family tends to live a while. So yeah, I'm only in my 60s. So, chill, I'll be around a bit. But here's my continuity plan, so they, the few times I've had to say it, they're pretty happy when they go ahead and do business with me. But I decided that it's time to give back to the community about 3-4 years ago, because the community's been very good to me. So I thought about it, and I'd been approached before by members of Rotary. In fact, one of the first ones to approach me was Frank Donahoe, who was one of the 3 gentlemen that came up with the idea for Field of Honor in Murrieta, which is where we put out over 2,000 flags every year to celebrate Veterans Week. And we have an event every day of the week. I mean, there's a parade, there's 5th graders being bussed in from all over the area to learn about the flags, learn about the 9/11 memorial, what happened there, learn about state flags, learn about local heroes, that, died and got the Congressional Medal of Honor. And ironically, the Field of Honor has been around, I think, 17 years now, but it was the idea of these 3 gentlemen, including Frank, that they needed some way to pay for another idea they had that they were doing in coordination with the city of Murrieta, called Murrieta Through Time, which were these like stone monuments.
Yeah, I remember.
They had to have a way to pay for that, right? So
Right.
was Field of Honor, and we paid a lot of that toward that to get that done. And 2 years ago, it was finished, completed, and we're able to show it to the 5th graders and the community as a whole. So it was really cool, because then you find out there really was a Juan Murrieta. He was an actual, farmer and, sheep herder out in the community. So it's kind of fun to learn those little facts and pass them on to the kids. So, it's very, heartwarming, because right there in Town Square Park, where they have the new amphitheater, and they have a nighttime ceremony where they'll have some of them sing, from different junior highs. They will read what they call letters from home, or letters to home, which is different servicemen from all the way back, through our history as a country, that they wrote home.
And that's coming up, right? That's something you can promote a little bit?
Yeah, that'll be in November. And this year, because I'll be president-elect in July, this is the year that I'm kind of responsible, along with the staff that Rotary assigns to be in charge of the Field of Honor. I'm one of the main ones for getting sponsors and sponsorships, because that's the money I will get to spend when I am president the following year in 27. So, because Rotary, we make all that money, or generate that money, I should probably say, from sponsorships and sales. We don't make any money.
Right.
Rotary then puts all that back into the community, and Rotary International, and we even have different areas of service we cover. So when I joined Rotary, the first year was interesting learning curve, but I was asked almost right away, because I did pretty well at BNI when I was president, of recruiting new members. You remember you were one of the ones I talked into joining back in the day. Because it's not about a sales pitch. It's about, hey, this thing worked for me. Come check this out. And once they see the energy in the room and what's possible, most people say this is a no-brainer, and they'll join and give it a try. But like anything else, you got to kind of work the system. You got to follow the best practices. Otherwise, you're not going to do so well. If you don't make your attendance, you don't, do one-to-one meetings with other members, and you just, don't follow up on the referrals they give you, because nothing worse than I give you a referral and then you don't call that person. Well, you make me look bad doing that, right? So you got to make me look good by, taking care of that customer. We have a younger guy that does IT in our group right now, and everybody I've sent him to, he just makes me look like a hero. They go, "Oh, I love him. He is such a considerate and a knowledgeable gentleman." Like, "Oh, I love that kid." So, and his dad used to be in our chapter before he got a C-level job. So he had his son take over the business, and he's awesome. Very smart kid. I say kid because I'm 60 plus. He's in his 20s. So,
Yeah.
But anyway, so back to Rotary. So some of the things that Rotary, and as a small member of it, because I'm the membership chair the last 3 years, we work on things like community service, which Field of Honor is, where we get all the money that then we put back into the community. and such things as the Valentine's dance for special needs adults, and that's just really heartwarming. My wife and I
Yeah.
got signed to the table this past February when we decided we were going to attend it. And we were checking in all the kids and their, what do they call them, like their guardians or their sponsors.
Caregivers. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so fun watching them come in, big old smiles on their faces. And you'd have to understand their names. Sometimes the caregiver would have to tell us because we couldn't understand them because all the noise behind us. And we'd write it down on a post-it, hand it to them, and then they would announce at the door before they came in like it was a cotillion. It was
Yeah.
really cool. Then we do a child spree where we work in conjunction with Salvation Army on getting the back to school programs, going through JCPenney. They open the store a couple hours early, and Rotary Volunteer Salvation Army people will go in there and help them shop for their back to school needs. And these are identified in need kids that are identified. We do food for those in need. Different interact clubs. That's like a high school version, and Rotary that usually run at the high school level. And we do this early Thanksgiving from, different meals for the community where you can donate turkeys to Rotary, and we'll take it over there to Myriad Mesa High School where they actually have a culinary department and training center that they will
Hmm.
meals and hand it out to the community and send boxes home with them. Myriad Through Time, I mentioned already, that was our big monuments that we, took care of. We do teacher service grants where they apply for what they don't have the funds for at the school level. And that is more than what the teacher can pay for out of pocket. Because if you don't know, teachers pay for a lot of their stuff out of pocket nowadays. And we do quite a few grants in the probably close to $10,000 worth every year. Literacy, we do a significant sum of money to buy materials for different reading and math programs in myriad of schools. We do a vocational service award program in conjunction with the city where we identify police, fire, certain educators and healthcare professionals and other first responders that they're going to be recognized by the city and Rotary, at a luncheon. We do Rotary. Rotary has this thing called RILA and Pride. They're youth leadership camps. RILA is Rotary Youth Leadership Awards, and they go in their junior year up to like Arrowhead, Big Bear area, and they have a weekend camp where they learn all these really cool things about leadership. Pride is the same thing, only for I believe it's eighth graders, and they come back just totally changed from what the parents are telling us. And then in their senior year, they get to they're all run by them when they come back as seniors, and later as like the camp leaders, and then Rotarians will usually volunteer to make sure they get on the bus, get off the bus when they get back, so that no one's left alone. And then also what we call discussion group leaders up at the camps. So I'll probably be doing that in the coming year because I haven't been able to go up in previous years. But this year I'm going to try and free up some time for it because I think it'll be a blast. We also do high school speech and music competitions. I was the one that kind of ran the speech for a couple of years and then handed off to a guy who did a much better job than me because he's a Toastmaster and he does a really awesome job at coaching the kids on how to give a proper speech. And the music competitions pretty much speaks for itself. They have vocal, piano, and then other instruments. And they'll usually play mostly classical, but they'll sometimes do like show tunes or whatever. And then it's judged by local musicians usually. And then they go on to a district competition and so forth. And it's a lot of fun listening to those amazing musicians. And then we also have youth scholarships for military families, career tech, and through the Myriad School District. We sponsor a Cub Scout troop locally. Once a year we give them a nice big donation. I mentioned Share the Harvest for the Thanksgiving meals. We have service projects for seniors. In fact, we just spun up a what's called a satellite club over at Ivy Park off of Clinton Keith because some
Hmm.
of those members cannot always get over to our club because they're more wheelchair bound or house bound there. So we asked them if they would mind sponsoring a club there. And I helped, along with the president of our club, get it set up for them. And that was an interesting experience because now they got their own senior club there. And they will do what they can for our different projects. International water projects will go to places like in La Paz, Mexico, and around the world, donating our time and efforts to buy things like for filtration of water. We've gone to Uganda, Taipei, I believe, as well, over in Taiwan, and assisted with different projects, whether it be getting them refurbished computers. Sewing machines is a big need for making clothes and for women's sanitary needs because that's pretty much unheard of in
Yeah.
certain countries. So we take care of that. We support foster youth. We have a Student of the Month program. We are one of the sponsors for it's through Sizzler, and Sally does that. She, we always refer to her as Sally Sizzler because, her family owns a lot of the Sizzler restaurants in the
Right.
area. Been
Right.
doing this for over 30 years, the Student of the Month program. and then student of the year as well. And we also do a lot of joint projects with some of the other local Rotary clubs, because there's a big one where everybody goes to Mexicali once a year as well for a project. And then, of course, Rotary's big goal is to eradicate polio from the planet. And we've got it down to single digits in most countries. The few that are left, it's almost completely gone. And that's a donation we make every year. And then also on a weekly basis, a lot of what we jokingly call our fines for not wearing our badge or not wearing our pin, we will donate $1 to the cause, and that's what
Right.
happens. It's kind of a fun thing. So yeah, I mentioned pretty much everything there.
Well,
The
you're busy, Tom. I
the
don't know how
latest
you're going to have time for me.
Well, I don't get to do all these programs. I get to pick and choose, because that's the thing about Rotary. We have over 50 members in our club, but our district has told us over and over, you guys punch way above your weight, because we have like 40 plus projects that the club does as a whole, but it's not every person doing it. You pick what your interests are, what you're passionate about, and you work on those projects. And see, I'm going to be president in about a year and a month. I want to learn more about it. So I'm learning each of the things so I can get involved more and decide on which one I want to do when I transition out of being president, when
Right.
it's so urgent that I learn about it. We recently added another service chair too, called environmental service. So
Hmm.
it's very concerned in the environment. And it's all about, pollination gardens that we put up at some of the elementary schools, helping with the monarch butterfly and bees, because a lot of people don't think about that, but those are what we call our pollinators. If they die out and go extinct, so will we, because then you don't have the plants that feed the animals that feed us. So
Yeah.
even the
So
vegetarian, you've got to, have the pollinators.
So if somebody's listening to this and they're like, I need to get more involved in some of these groups, I want to be like Tom. Like, how would you go about this? So there's obviously the Marietta Wildemar Chamber of Commerce,
Yeah,
the
drop in
Rotary
at
Club, BNI.
Yeah, yeah. The Marietta Wildemar Chamber of Commerce. You can find their website, mwcoc.org, and just read through there and see what all we do. There's a membership directory. There's also a contact list of who you would contact for the different phone numbers and emails, or you just pop in their office. If they're in house, they're over what we call the MIC, or the Marietta Innovation Center, off of Beckman Court, which is just like one street below Jefferson. And that's a great way to find out a little bit more about the chamber, or come to any of our ribbon cuttings. They post them on social media. Just pop on in. Also, they're going to have a mega mixer this Thursday at the Mount San Jacinto Temecula campus, which is off of Margarita, and I think the street is actually called like Auto Parkway or something like that.
Yes,
It's
it's
for
June
Wooden Street.
25th in case this comes out a little bit later, but
Oh, okay.
yeah, they have that twice a year.
Yeah, June and
It's like,
January. Yeah.
yeah, you can pretty much anybody can attend that for, I believe it's a business
Business
card or
card.
$1.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can.
So it's a
Yeah,
great event. You can meet a bunch of people.
yeah.
Yeah.
A couple thousand people will go through. You'll see a lot of people with tables and booths in there. I will have one this June. January is usually at Storm Stadium, and it'll be up on the concourse up there above the ball field. So, it's a fun event. My wife and a good friend of hers call it adult trick or treating, because you go around, get a bag, and fill it up with swag. So it's a lot of fun. Also, if you're interested in Rotary, reach out to me and I can introduce you to whatever Rotary club is close to you. Marietta is, near and dear to my heart, but as long as you join a Rotary, I'll be happy. But ours meets Mondays at noon for lunch at Richie's Diner. And the first couple times I'll buy your lunch, so, come in, check it out and see if Rotary's for you. Because Rotary, yeah, you'll get some networking in there. You might get some jobs, but it's not about that. Rotary is more about giving back and servicing your community. And that's why I joined it, because I was ready to do that at this point in my career, because the business keeps coming in. I have a steady stream of income from my recurring clients. So I'm not as panicked every month about getting new business. And I wanted to, give something back to the community that helped me establish myself as a business person.
So the last thing we do, Tom, I got 3 questions for you. These are
Okay.
off the cuff. I did not give you a heads up on this. And
I'm
these are just simple questions. First one, pizza or tacos?
pizza, but I'm allergic to cheese.
Allergic to cheese, but pizza. Okay. Music, podcasts, or audiobooks?
It's kind of a toss up between listening to music or an audiobook. I always have an audiobook I'm listening to.
Okay. Let's see. And the last one is, do you have a restaurant or coffee shop that is a secret favorite of yours that you could give a buddy a tip on?
Well, can't really say a coffee shop. There's so many in town that have opened recently, but there's a place I love over in Hot Springs for barbecue.
Mhm.
Get to know me, I love barbecue, and that would be, Maybell's.
Okay. I haven't heard of that. I'll try that.
Yeah, they're over there on Myriad Hot Springs. They're Texas barbecue,
Uh-huh.
and unfortunately, they close as soon as they run out of meat, usually around dinner time, if not earlier. So
You
get
better
there
get
for
up
lunch.
better
Yeah,
get
get
there
there for
early.
really nice couple that run it. Sometimes their kids will be running around the little play area they have up front for them, but it's a really nice atmosphere, and they have really good food. So
That's
Maybell's,
great.
yeah,
Perfect, Tom. Thank you.
area not too far from Margarita and Myriad Hot Springs.
I will check it out. So
Yeah.
thanks, Tom, for doing this. I really appreciate it. I wanted people to get to know you a little bit better and what you do. It's not always the people that are out front, making a lot of noise that get a lot of stuff done. And you're one of those guys that has helped me and helped a lot of other people. I know we're both sort of a little sore about the loss of Luann, another one of those people that made a
Yeah,
real big impact on the community. And,
yeah.
it was part of the reason why I wanted to interview you. I know you were close to her, and she had an impact on you, and probably rubbed off on you quite a bit. And she did the same for me. So I think it's important that we put some people like yourself up in front a little bit sometimes, and at least point them out. So
Yeah, when I was the ambassador chair, I tried so hard to get her nominated to be the, ambassador of the year, like a couple of times in a row, but, I was overrode on that, so but she was always the face at the front table. She may not have gone to every ribbon cutting, so therefore, she wasn't as involved as some of us, but she had MS for 44 years, so she was kinda restricted on some of her activities toward the end, but she was a dynamo, and she really cared about her community and help. And so obviously that rubbed off. And we always refer to her as little sis. So
yeah, yeah. So she'll be missed.
yes,
Well,
she
thank
will.
you, Tom. I appreciate you spending the time today,
You.
and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks,
All
buddy.
right.